Aloha. So let's make sure we're in tune. E, A, D, G, B, and E. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about lesson one really quick. This causes muscle memory. And what happens is if we could stay close to the fretboard and move these up in half step, diatonic, chromatic movements, when we start giving more interval spaces between half step, like we're doing, we get different types of modes. One is called Ionian, which everyone knows is the major scale. So lesson 3 is what I'm going to show you here today. Lesson 1 are the scales, and lesson 2 are the way just to view your triads, which are your chords, C major, D major, G major, A major, as just being fundamentally 3 notes. The way I teach that is, it doesn't really matter if you know what the note names are, as long as you know fundamentally the shapes and chord positions move. And it does change the note value, the name, but it's all relative to what key you're in. So the way that we do this is I have a down, up, down, up. The pick shouldn't be held with a pointy, but it should be held with a flat. When you do down, up, the point is to figure out how much space there is in between each one of these strings. So a good practice is to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up on the A, then D, down, up, 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 down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. I'm just calmly mooting. I'm not pressing thing down on here. You could also do this, or you can play a chord. That'll help with these up and down movements for the spiders. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What we're looking for is to make sure that the fingers aren't going way off the fretboard and they're standing relatively close to it. Being able to do this up and down in a pattern with a beat, using the same fingers consistently, leads to us having the assumption and the actual relative conclusion that our fingers when we play should stay on the frets in between them. You'll notice that when sometimes you play, some people will hit different notes with different fingers. That's all right, as long as the note comes out for the specified tone that you're looking for. However, when you start moving up and around and it goes beyond the 4th fret, it then gets questionable, because there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes in between E and E. Those minor second movements, which are basically they're dissonant notes. That half step, that minor second makes that. So a C with a C sharp gives us kind of like a cringing sound. And then when we move on, it becomes a little bit more easier on the ear. What we're doing with the spider exercises and moving it up is creating muscle memory and staying close to the fretboard so we're able to move with ease freely. When we move this up to the 4th fret and slide our first finger up to the 5th fret and start that same cadence again, we'll notice that all of our fingers should be controlling the 5 through 9. 9, 8, 7, I'm sorry, 5, 8, 7, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 5. And then when I get through my 5, 6, 7, 8, I scoot my 5th finger, my 5 finger, my first finger up to the 9 and start that again. This is where your spider exercises ended up going. And what this does is it teaches us how to play within these 4 different frets, right? And then be in there, which gives us our pentatonics, which are relatives of our majors. So that's a lot of information. And what I do is I dissect all of that for us. So what we realize is when we do half steps here, eventually we might be doing whole steps. Sometimes we'll be doing whole step, half step. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And each one of these, when we do maybe like a whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, becomes a major chord. And when we do a, let's say, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, becomes a minor. So what lesson 2 is learning how to play the chords you already know how to play in different fingerings, so new chord shapes aren't foreign. Like your diminished chords or your dominant chords, they could be complicated or easy. If you want to call them a bunch of different names and subscribe what it is, a C sharp major or E minor, they're both the same chord. Just knowing how to make the shape of a C sharp major 7 or a E or a F minor are relative, because each one, how about a C minor 7 or a C major 7, has that nice and airy tone? Well, I achieved that by taking my C major and getting rid of the C and putting a B there. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, the 7th note, making this major a C major 7. If I were to take the B and put a B flat, a half step underneath that, a whole tone away from my C, it becomes a C dominant 7. And what happens, each one of these chord structures, D major 7, D dominant 7, can work with those. When we use our tones just in the beginning, what we do is we hear the 1, the 3, and the 5 as being our triad. C, C, E, G. When we move up in order, just like on a piano, C, E, G to a D, F, A, that is not a major. It's a minor, because the F is not an F sharp. So knowing the difference between a D major and a D minor, pretty cool. But knowing how to play a D major in secondary fingering position and realizing that when you play a D minor in second fingering position, you get one more note down there. So normally I would play a D minor like this. If I move this finger to the F and this where that was on the D, I just get a thicker D minor. When you play that up here with an E minor, F minor, all of them are relative. So we go over harder chords like that in the future, but it all starts with learning to play a D major in one way and learning how to play it a different way. What you'll notice is some of the things that you've done and learned might be in the right fingering, they might not. And easily moving these fingers to where they controllably are in the right positioning will line us up for the next step. One of the songs I'm working on with another student is this song by Green Day, and it has a movement where I'm moving from a G5 to a G with a it's G5, but it incorporates the F sharp in the bass, and then the same thing but with the E. Well, when you play with the right fingering, you don't have to move everything because it's walking down. Then the first finger hits the E. Well, she's playing with the first finger, so it means when you get to here, there are no more other fingers to go to. What happens, you have to do a quick switch. It's an awkward switch, so if she wants to keep doing that, it's fine, but I'm teaching both patterns for what's right and what's not right. And here's the caveat. Not either is right. It's just an easier flow for my fingers and standardized ways of doing stuff, like playing an A major like this, rather than putting 3 fingers on the chords to make the same A major. You're freeing yourself up. So little concepts like that keep platform and pancaking to make versatily thicker music theory. But in answer to a lot of questions, you don't have to know all the words and what a sus4 is, as long as those chords come out and those patterns are what you're used to playing. So in finalization, lesson 1 that you should work on this week and then meet me next Wednesday at 1:35 would be playing down, up, all the way through all 6 strings, starting with the first fret. Switching up here, and then slowly moving your fingers up. And getting comfortable with each fret, playing in the middle, making sure every note has the same duration. It comes out nice and clear. And when you're doing these notes, you could go up and go back down. Same thing, you want to keep your fingers kind of close. You don't want to be playing flat notes because those get muffled, but you want to be playing pointy notes. Yeah? And then when you get through all of these every day for 5 minutes, it subsequently will make it a little faster. The rhythm aspect on lesson 2, let's start with the A major. It's an easier concept to move this way. I'm going to say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. On the and, you're going to switch your fingering. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. See how I just played A major in 3 different ways, and I kept the beat, and right after I attacked it, I switched the note. So I was thusly switching to the same chord using different fingerings. What happens is when you train each finger, you could then move that up and bar to make a B flat. And since all of these chords can be moved up and they're all the same, you essentially make a B flat, B, C, C sharp, D. I know that you know what a bar chord is. I just want to reinforce that they are a great force being able to do something like this, and then this, and then knowing why that makes sense over the top and how it's relative to the A. The D minor movement over the top of the A can be considered a movement. You could have another movement, which is a diminished. You could go up to a minor, you could do up a major, another major, minor, and that becomes a different pattern for a minor scale, which is the 6th scale mode, Aeolian. Don't have to know the name of that, but most people will learn do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, major and minor. This is lesson 3. After you get through with doing lesson 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Those are 16th notes. Once you do that with every key, D, 2, 3, 4, D, 2. Now I'm going to go to half notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now quarters. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Now I'm going to go to 8th notes. Now 16th notes. The idea is your right hand goes on co-pilot while the fingers start doing a placement, which comes slow by doing new chords. And then instead of the layering thing, it starts just being all at the same time. So when you play a C major, instead of going 1, 2, 3, you just start putting your fingers down all together. Instead of playing an E major by going G sharp, E, B, you basically go E sharp, G, B all at the same time. And if you can do that with both sets of fingerings, being able to teeter-totter and move those fingers over and move it up and bar creates your new chords, bar chords, as you know. So it's a method of doing lesson 1, which is a methodology of getting half steps to get your fingers safe and secure, know how to build muscle memory of where you are. Also, step number 2 is to be able to play in different rhythms. So when we get down to playing something like, you'll see this as being 16th notes or fast 8th notes. Either way, that is the step that I teach for getting into rhythm, so all rhythms make sense. Then we subdivide 4/4, which is all that, into 3/4, 6/4, 7/8, 11, 13, different time signatures that you don't normally hear on the radio. So lesson 1, lesson 2. Lesson 3 is going to be for next week. It introduces scales from the C major, and I think we went into that a little bit. Just going to hold that for next week. Practice lesson 1, lesson 2. Choose any chord for lesson 2 out of your 7 majors, 7 minors, and play it in 2 different ways. Cool? If you have any questions, put them in the comments section or give me a text. Aloha.